Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley, your host of Life After an Ego Death, and today's special guest is Jason Reza. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am beyond thrilled to be doing this. This is a long time coming, and it's kind of new for me. I've really never talked about this stuff publicly before. Been kind of behind the scenes for a long time. So now's the time to spread the word and make it reality. Um, so, I have so much to say. It's probably going to be a little bit scattered, and I apologize if I start talking really fast. I do that when I get excited. So if I need to slow down, let me know.
You go at the pace that is right for you, and it is all well. It is all good. It's all going to flow anyway. And even though it might not make sense, it is going to completely make sense wherever you scatter because it is meant to be.
Excellent. Thank you for holding space, being so understanding. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it. So, the podcast is called Life After an Ego Death. I would like to share the story of my ego death, and kind of how it's changed me, and really to explain like how seemingly normal things can actually be like divine. That
Yeah.
there's no difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary. It's just if you're realizing it, if you're perceiving it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wanna start off by saying that one of my biggest inspirations in life is the Greek philosopher Socrates, or Socrates
Mm-hmm.
is usually how people know his name. Um, and like my spiritual journey has followed his words to a T. That my journey has been almost kind of selfish in that I have spent so much trying to know myself.
Mm-hmm.
Socrates said, "Know thyself." He said, "An
Mm-hmm.
unexamined life is not worth living." And that's like all I've been doing for a decade is trying to understand who I am, to understand who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and why I'm here, what I'm here to do. Um, so, yeah. Anyways, to understand the transition that I went through, uh, I've got to tell you who I was beforehand, okay? Because it's like I did a full 180. So when I was a kid, I was like the sweetest, most sensitive little boy. I was way overly gentle, like hyper affectionate, um, just like the sweetest little thing. And unfortunately, that kind of came back to bite me because I was letting people walk all over me. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't use my voice. I didn't um
Mm-hmm.
I was just like a passenger in life. I was just letting it all
Mm-hmm.
happen and not influencing it. Um and over the years, I'd say from like, I don't know, maybe from like 7 years old to like 15 years old, I started to witness that more and more. I could see that people were taking advantage of me, that people were just kind of imposing their will on me, and I just let it happen. Not in like any
Mm-hmm.
like physical sense. It's not like I was assaulted or anything like that. Thankfully, I know some people have had it way worse than me. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, as a kid, I feel like I never got to do anything that I wanted. My
Mm-hmm.
mother just formed me into what she wanted me to be. It was about her
Same.
vision for me. Yeah, it's like,
Same.
you know, kind of, controlling parents. They with my mom at least, it was all out of love. It's like she wanted to protect me, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I was just craving freedom. I craved individuality. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be supported
Mm-hmm.
in my truth. And everything that I would bring up to her just got shot down. It was, no, that's too
Mm-hmm.
dangerous. That's not going to work. It's not a smart decision. And so I felt pressured to just kind of do nothing, to just go with the flow. And it made me easy to be around. It made me gentle. It made me, there was no conflict about me. But I was like hollow. I was like a little shell of a person. There was nothing to me. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
then as I got a little bit older and I, became a teenager, and hormones and emotions start fluctuating everywhere. I started to get really angry. I had this deep resentment that was building in me, not really at anyone else, but at myself for not standing up for myself. Um, and of course, I would never show it. I felt like I was too much of an imposition on people to show how I was really feeling. I was like a people pleaser. It was more about how
Mm-hmm.
does everyone else feel? Make sure that they're calm and comfortable, and whatever I'm feeling, we're just gonna ignore that and brush it under the rug, which is obviously not
Mm-hmm.
healthy. So I started to get all of this like rage and frustration in me, and never really had an outlet for it, until when I was a teenager. Thankfully, one of the best things my mother's ever done for me, she urged me to get into martial arts, and that was a life changer for me. That I 21, 22 years later, I am still a practicing martial artist, and it has been like a defining aspect of my personality. um, so that was really good, and that kind of started to give me this outlet to not only release my frustration, but also to help build my confidence, because that's really
Mm-hmm.
what it was. I was just so unconfident in myself that I just wouldn't even show myself to anyone. um, so this weird sort of change happened where, as I started to get more physically fit, because as a little kid I was very overweight. In fact, interestingly enough, now at 32 years old, now I weigh less than I did when I was like 11 years old. I was very overweight. So as I got more physically fit and I started to build this confidence in my body, as well as gaining all these new skill sets, feeling like I could, you know, defend myself in a dangerous situation if I would ever have to. Which there were a couple of times that I got into fights as a kid, and that's kind of what led my mom to put me in martial arts, is because um, if I was going to keep getting bullied, she wanted to make sure that I could stand up for myself. And um, so my confidence grew. I started to become much more sure of myself, but it didn't necessarily manifest in a healthy way at first. Basically, I had been thinking up until then that, like, oh, I'm just kind of this like weird little lonely loser kid, and like I'm never going to get to do all these cool things that I see all these other people doing who are more popular and confident. Like I just sold myself short. um, so as I started to change myself physically and mentally, it's like I just started indulging in all of these kind of bad temptations of the world. um, in high school, I started to get like a little bit more popular. Girls started to notice me because I had some like muscles now, and um, that felt so good because I thought I would never have them that I way overdid it. I started to become a womanizer. I was just kind of trying to like date girls as much as I could and like hook up with them because I was very much just like feeding off the attention, which is not good. That was not me being authentic with these people. I was being an energy vampire, and then when I was probably 16, I'd say, that's when I started getting really heavily into like substance abuse. Um, I essentially like, my whole life up until that point, I felt like I was kind of living this lie. Like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, and I didn't know how to escape it. I felt very hopeless. So like I would just take any substance that I could find. I've done almost every drug conceivable, uh, with some exceptions. Thankfully, I never got into some of the like really really bad, um, like hyper addictive ones. I never did heroin. I never did meth. But aside from those two, just about everything else. And I did it with no sort of intention. I showed up to a place, drugs or alcohol was available. I said, "Gimme." And I just went for it. And I it was like, screw the consequences on myself. Screw whatever it was bringing. I needed something real. I needed to feel something. I needed to escape this lie that I was living and get like deeper into myself, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I didn't know myself. And now years later, like I said, my spiritual journey has been all about knowing myself because I didn't as a kid. um,
Mm-hmm.
and simultaneously as this was going on, I'm still living at home. My mom, of course, is noticing my behavior change. I'm staying out late. I'm coming home and like slurring my words. She's like, obviously this kid's partying, but I don't know what he's doing. And to this day, I don't know if my mom really ever understood the extent of how much of a degenerate teenager I was. Um, but ultimately, because of our relationship when I was a child, um, I just basically didn't trust my mom because I knew that she would shoot down everything I said. I knew that
Mm-hmm.
there was no point in opening up to her because she was not my friend. She was exclusively
Mm-hmm.
my parent. She was there to discipline, not to
Mm-hmm.
support. So I
Mm-hmm.
just withdrew further away from her. I didn't talk to her about anything. I would come home, I'd go into my room, I'd do my own thing, and we just didn't even associate with each other. We lived in the same house and were complete strangers. And she would try to ask things and open me up. I would just shut it down. It also taught me to be a really good liar, which is not a good skill. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I learned that she was trying to impose all of these limitations and restrictions on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than fighting back against her, because I knew that was pointless, she'd say, "You can't do this." I'd say, "Okay," and then do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I and I just started to kind of show her, I think, that you will not control me. You can't.
Yeah.
I am going to live my life in the way that I see fit, um, and
Mm-hmm.
and that has been a recurring theme for me throughout my whole life. If you're familiar with like the works of the psychologist Carl Jung, he
Mm-hmm.
has like the 12 Jungian archetypes. I am the rebel archetype.
Me too.
Ah, are you really?
We
That's amazing.
we had the same mother, so literally I'm saying mm-hmm, nodding the whole entire time to your experience. So yeah, I totally know.
That I don't think I've actually ever met anyone else who has that same archetype. So that's very cool. That's
And it's cool
this
that
is
we
a
both,
monumental meeting.
yeah. I love his work too. It's good.
Hmm, hmm. Um, Yeah, so like I said, I'm like this rebel archetype. Um, Also, for what it's worth, astrologically, I'm a Scorpio, so I feel like Scorpios tend to be kind of very grounded in their own truth. We don't really need
Mm-hmm.
like outside sources. We kind of tend to figure things out on our own rather than like the whole like mentorship type of um,
Mm-hmm.
phase. We kind of just for me anyway, I can't speak for other people, but I tend to just throw myself into the deep end of whatever I'm trying to learn or experience. I don't like gradually set myself up with little steps to improve bit by bit. I just go for it 100%, do it perfect the
Me
first time.
too. Mm-hmm. Same.
And so I feel like I teach myself kind of in a tough love way, but it's
Mm-hmm.
almost this way of like I know I can do it, so I
Right.
don't need to take the gentle, easy way.
It's natural to be intense, also.
Yeah, yeah, very much. That's why, like, I don't know. In setting up this podcast, I feel like I don't know. I responded to your messages in a way that's almost like I felt like I was like taking it too serious. I was like I was
No.
like hyper fixated on like, all right, we are gonna do this podcast and it's gonna be amazing.
And you saw how I responded with the same intensity, the same seriousness. Um,
Mhm.
I'm a Cancer, so maybe it's a water sign thing that we go all in, very intense, and don't hold anything back, and
For
just
sure.
jump in, dive in. And also, since the Scorpio, like lots of transformation, lots of death and rebirth is part of your
hmm
cycle.
and it's well, yes, that's true. I feel like every time that I've kind of changed through life, it's been just like the old me dying and just
Mm-hmm.
birthing into a new one. Um, and I really love to see the I shouldn't even say see. I love to hear the difference in like we share the trait as water signs, but like as a Cancer, I feel like it is in your nature to be very like gentle, nurturing, kind of have this like parental predisposition. And I can
Mm-hmm.
feel that just in your voice. Your voice is this gentle, soothing, melodic thing. And I feel like I have this harsh, intense tone. Like Scorpios are like like, I don't know, the weapon. The weapon of the water signs.
Yeah, you guys are the water signs on fire is how I
Yeah.
tell they're like, "What's a Scorpio?" I'm just like, "They're water on fire." That's what they are. Like
hmm hmm I used to always have this kind of like picture in my mind. Kind of talking about my martial arts experience before, I made really good friends with this guy Jacob, who helped me through so much. He helped me to process my anger in a way that no one else has been able to do. Because, like I said, anger has been my primary difficult emotion to process. Um, and I always used to say to Jacob, I was like, when I picture my anger, it is a maelstrom. It is like a swirling whirlpool of dark water with a storm above, with thunder and lightning and high winds and crazy torrential downpour rains. It like the type of sea conditions that would crush and consume a ship.
hmm
That's like what my anger looks like. And historically in my life, when I get angry, I feel like that happens. It just consumes me. I get like
hmm
blackout angry. I don't even know who I am. I lose touch with reality. The anger just floods all of my senses. Um,
hmm
so much so that like when I was a teenager and I was feeling this very like kind of untrue nature to myself, I feel like I got all of my sadness out then. Like I had like between like 14 and 17, I had so many nights where I would cry myself to sleep that I feel like I got all of my sadness out now. And since then, every single time that I kind of get taken out of my high vibration into a lower emotional state, it is anger every single time. Always. I don't get sad anymore. I can't even tell you what it feels like to be sad anymore. It's always angry. That's the only negative experience that I like have anymore. Like if we think of like the classic like seven deadly sins, wrath is for sure mine. That's the one that I'm learning to tame in this life.
It's actually why you feel it so intensely is it's a cumulative effect from all of your other lifetimes where this is something you have to overcome. And I have a exercise for you to do to release inner anger. And when you do all those exercises, you're going to get a bunch of flashbacks and you're not going to understand what you're seeing, but that is what needs to come to the surface to alchemize that darkness into light. It is so cool, and it is really, really powerful. So I will give you homework after.
Very cool. Thank you. I love that. But yeah, so let me kind of jump back into kind of the story that I was telling. Sorry, I get like sidetracked all the time, but anyway, so I was like getting deep into my substance abuse, right? And it reached like a really kind of like rock bottom point when I was, I'd say 21, I think. It was like this cascade effect, right? So at that point, right, I was like engaging in all these shallow relationships, like random hookups, drinking, drugging all the time, even like gambling to some degree. I had no level of introspection. I was just purely fixated on like escaping myself. I wanted to be numb all the time. Even when I wasn't like partying, any time that I was at home, like I had to be immersed in some kind of like fantasy. I had to read fantasy books or watch fantasy movies, play fantasy games. I could not be in reality because reality felt like a prison. So I was just always trying to escape into something grander, something more fun, I guess. But there reached this point where when I was 21, 4 days after my 21st birthday, I got my first DUI. And that was like my first major run-in with the law. And that kind of changed everything up in my life. I lost my license. I had all of these fines to pay. I was on probation. I, was dealing with legal crap. And so that kind of like knocked me down a peg in my confidence. Also at that point, I was in college. So between like working part-time, my school studies, which I wasn't really taking seriously, plus like dealing with the law stuff, I was not practicing martial arts at the time. So like my one healthy outlet, I wasn't even doing anymore. I was just fully consumed into this like party boy lifestyle. And again, I kind of like, I loved it because I was like getting all this attention that I hadn't gotten before. People liked me because I was the drug guy. It was anytime I showed up, it was like, okay, Jason definitely has it. Like, let's hang out with him. And, now as I've gotten older, I realized that those were all shallow relationships. They all dissolved. They were based on what I did for people. None of them actually liked me for me. So I don't really know any of those people anymore. Now in my 30s, I hang out with my wife and my dog, and that's it. And that's enough for me. But anyway, so I had that run in with the law, and then like 5 or 6 months later, I had my second it must have been 6 months later because I had a 6-month like hold on my license. So I got my license back only just a little bit after. I was driving with a bunch of friends. I had like a quarter pound of weed in the car in a state where it was still illegal at the time, and ran a stop sign at like 3 a.m. I figured nobody's out, but the cops were. So run this stop sign, blue and lights, whoop, whoop, pop on, and we get pulled over, right? And one of my friends who was also on probation was like, bro, this can't happen. And I'm like, I'm on probation too, bro, this can't happen. And then there was one other kid in the car who he didn't have any like prior trouble, but he was like obviously still scared, didn't want to be blamed on anything. So they found the weed. All of us denied it. All of us said, I don't know who it belongs to. But that was, again, that was a lie. I was lying to myself. I knew who it belonged to. And unfortunately, because of that lie, one of my best friends, who happens to be Latino, got racially profiled by this white police officer. And so he spent 9 months in jail for that evening. And it was my fault. And he and I have like processed that. We've like come to terms with that. But I still feel that in my heart that I caused him to, go through that period of hardship. So that incident, having done that to my friend out of my own, like, I don't know, fucking, I just, you know what I mean? I was being selfish. I was looking at my own best interest and not doing what was true and right. And that was bad of me. So then I started to like double down on all my partying. I just pretty much, that was all I did. I just would look for a party all the time. What's the wave? I was closing out the bar 4 nights a week. Bank account was drained. I was a loser. I was just doing it wrong and just destroying myself. And like at this point, there was kind of this like little spiritual voice inside me that was kind of starting to come awake, kind of urging me on this new path. But I was just ignoring it. I was saying, hey, shut up, don't do that. And then the girl that I was dating at the time ended up breaking things off with me. And I kind of said this, like made this decision in my heart that I was like, I'm just done with relationships. I need to focus on me. I want to get better, and I need to make that my focus right now. So I was like, okay, I'm done with relationships. And it was funny because the universe, I guess, has a sense of humor, because that happened. And then like 2 weeks later, I met the woman who I am now married to, who I have spent the last 11 years with, who is my twin flame, the greatest love of my life that I could ever ask for. And it was only right in the moment where I said, no more relationships. That's when it just like fell right into my lap. Her name is Amanda. And meeting Amanda was the most like eye-opening, like realist experience I've ever had, because we met and I could tell within like hours of meeting her that like this is the realest human being I've ever met. There is no lies with her. There is no deception. There is no performance. There's no pretending to be anything other than exactly what she is. And thankfully, I had enough like awareness in that moment to realize this is a 1 in a billion chance. I cannot let this slip up. I cannot ruin this. So I also need to be as real and vulnerable as possible and meet her where she is. And so it was magical. Like people have this like Hollywood conception of like love at first sight. Like you just know when you know. And in my experience, that's been absolutely true. It was like, I can't explain it. I just looked into this woman's eyes and knew I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. And I have no explanation for it. It was just a feeling. And thankfully, this, incredibly gracious person was able to love me like that at my worst, at my lowest point, when I felt like the biggest piece of shit. She could still see the good in me. And that was the most like powerful catalyst for change, that if she could believe in me, then I could absolutely believe in me. And I had to, in order to, again, meet her where she's at. I had to get better to be better for her. I couldn't continue being the lie that I was. So Okay, that was we're getting close to a half hour. Do I have a little extra time?
So, if do you need another 30 minutes? Do you want to do a part two like right now? We could ha
I don't know if I need another full 30 minutes, but like probably at least 10, I'd say,
Oh
to really
yeah, we
get
can
through the bulk
stay.
of what
Yeah, we
I'm.
could
Okay,
stay on
very cool, very cool.
this one.
Thank you.
We can stay on this
Oh,
episode.
I appreciate you.
And that's
I
amazing.
appreciate you
That's
for
so amazing that you met her. Thank God. What divine intervention. No one gets
that. I
lucky.
know,
No
I
one gets
know,
lucky.
right?
They have to do it by themselves.
Yeah, oh, for sure. This is the greatest. Amanda is like, I feel like a gift to me that the universe, like, I don't know, took pity on me or something and was like, here you go. Here's the thing that's going to change your entire life. And yes, that I'm eternally grateful. That was and like, obviously the relationship with her has provided all these new outlets for learning too, that I'm like able to experience, what it's like
Hmm.
to do life with another person and to have this level of like real connection, because there's a lot
Hmm.
of like breaking down your internal walls that has to happen for that, which
Hmm.
is exactly the part of the story that I want to get into. I'm going to try to make this quick, so I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast, but I have to. So, um, after I had met her, right, that was July of 2015. 4 months later, November 4th, 2015, I was 22 years old. That was the moment that like changed my life. I had this one experience that completely altered my entire perception, cracked me open. That was my ego death. Um, so okay, essentially, I was still kind of partying in that time, even though I had met my love, but I couldn't like just transition out of it that quick. And of course, with years of experience at it now, I felt like I was invincible. So I just, did whatever with no regard for myself. So um, I went to a friend's house and um, we were basically going to do like a bunch of psychedelics, which I know those are not as like harmful. And I should say as like a disclaimer to anyone listening to this, like don't get addicted to things. That's not helpful to your life. However, certain sacred plant medicines have things that they can teach you as long as you
Hmm.
use them with reverence and respect.
Hmm.
Don't just keep
Hmm.
on popping acid tabs looking to have a good time. That doesn't teach you anything. You do it alone, you do it quiet, you do it introspectively. It's a meditative experience and it opens you up to yourself so that you can know
Hmm.
you on a deeper level. I was
Hmm.
not doing that. I was abusing them. But thankfully, they taught me what they needed to in that time. And I haven't really done any since. Like I learned what I had to in that time. Um, so, anyways, we go to this friend's house, and um, in the course of about 15 minutes, I consumed like a a depressant, a stimulant, three different types of psychedelics, and a entactogen, MDMA specifically. So, right, it was like this chemical cocktail of all these different things. There's uppers, there's downers, there's trippy, there's lovey, all of it, all going on at once. And again, I popped all these things and go, whatever, I'm not afraid. um, but the universe like checked my confidence on that night. So the first like hour of this experience was just fun. We're just laughing, listening to music. It's silly. It's whatever. And then there was this moment where it just changed. So it's important to lay out the setting for you. Um, on my left hand side, there was my drug dealer. Like okay, there was two couches that came to a corner, like an L, right? And I was sitting at the corner, and then across from the corner there was one singular chair. So on my left hand side of that couch, there was my drug dealer dressed in all black. Directly across from me in the singular chair was the host of the house dressed in all green, and the chair was green. And then on my right hand side, there was one of my dear friends named Dante, dressed in all white, and then another friend named Gabriel, who was dressed in white and blue. Which, if you know about the archangels, Gabriel's colors are typically white and blue. And it's interesting that my friend is named Dante because there are so many similarities in this experience to Dante's Divine Comedy, like the famous, poem from the Renaissance era. And I didn't know that story at the time of this experience, but I read it several years later and was like, oh, that's what happened to me. I had a Divine Comedy experience. So I had perceived this, like on my left side is like dark and negative. Directly across from me is neutral. And then on my right side is like good and positive. So I am getting into this part of the trip where there was this lamp next to me, and it had a lampshade that would rotate and spin, and it had like little pictures of aliens and mushrooms and little weed leaves and smiley faces and all kinds of psychedelic stuff that it would project on the room around us. And the little teensy tiny motor that made this lampshade spin made a teensy tiny little hum, a little squeal, little beep, right? And that sound started to get louder and louder and louder and louder until it consumed every other sound in my awareness. I could not focus on anything else except this little sound. And it was like a worm, like burrowing into my brain. It was like an unpleasant feeling of this sound entering me, but it was a portal that was opening me up. And I like called out to my friends, and it was like my voice was mumbled. It was like, it sounded like the old Charlie Brown cartoons when the parents talk and they go, wah, 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 and you can't really hear the word. That's how it was, like talking to everyone, like they couldn't hear me. And then I reached a point where I could feel like my brain liquefied. It turned into liquid. It stopped being a solid mass. And that was a very unpleasant experience. And as soon as that happened, all the stuff that I'm looking around in the room, all the color just started to seep out of it. It just started to turn black and white. The color just like melted away. And then the physical form started to just disappear. It was like when you turn off an old TV, like old CRT TV, you turn it off and the little light goes boo and like collapses into the center and slowly fades away. That's what reality started to do. Everything just disappeared until there was nothing, like it was just blackness. And I looked down at like where my body should be, and again, there was nothing. It was just void. And in that part, I could feel every aspect of my mind start to disintegrate. I had no recollection of who I was. I had no memory. I had no identity. I had no self-awareness. I had no emotion. I had no sensation. I had no thoughts. I had nothing. I became nothing. The only thing that I had was the awareness that I am aware right now. I knew that I am perceiving what's going on, but I didn't know what I was. I couldn't define I. All I had was the I am that I am. And then I sat in this void for what felt like billions of years. And I remember like having this kind of like, for lack of a better word, a thought of, is this going to last forever? Is this just life now? I'm just in this void forever, eternity? And I kind of got this sensation that like I was the universe, and that the universe had gone through or source is the word I tend to like. I don't really like the word God, that has like dogma around it. But it's like I felt like source had also had this exact experience of being in nothingness and going, is this it? Is this just all there is? Mm-hmm. And so as soon as I had that like realization of like, is this all there is? There was a sudden shift. I was in black void, darkness. All of a sudden it became white. It was still void. There was no shape or definition to anything, but the void became light. And I was in this light void and just like in awe of it, of like, whoa, there's just something else. And I could get this sort of recognition that I was both of them. I was the yin and the yang. I was the black and the white, the negative and the positive. And that's all I was. I was just this existence of two polarities simultaneously coexisting. And then what's weird is I had this moment where my consciousness kind of jumped out of that experience and briefly popped back into my like human body as Jason, who was tripping face on this couch. And I'm like popped out of it. And I remember like thinking something in my own mind. And then everybody sitting around me answered me when I was like, whoa, what? I was just thinking that. How'd you answer me? So then with like more effort, I spoke physically out loud. And then they all looked at me like, huh? What'd you say? So I'm like, hold up. They understand my thoughts, but not my words. What the hell is going on? So then I kind of like shift back into that like light and dark void experience. And all of a sudden, the light void sort of opens up and I start to experience dimensions. I start to experience like a singularity and then duality and then like this 3D physical. And when I experienced the 3D physical, it's weird. I looked to my right to like the two guys who were dressed in light colors and have biblical names. And they're both like big smiles, you know, like they're happy seeing what I'm doing. And my friend Dante puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, hey man, if you ever get lost, you can just follow my voice. And I was like, whoa, that's highly symbolic. And then simultaneously in this moment, I look over at my drug dealer dressed in black, and he literally he goes, hey, if it's too much, I got the off switch, and he holds out a little plate with cocaine on it. And I was like, nah, I can't do that. Doing more drugs right now is not the answer. And then at this moment, somebody else walked in the door. The people whose house we were at are twins, and the brother had come home, and he brings this other dude in who nobody else had ever met before. This guy comes in, he was dressed in all red, and he introduced himself as Cain was his name. And I got up to shake his hand, and he goes, hey, I'm Cain, like Cain and Abel. And I'm like, whoa, that's a weird like, why would you introduce yourself as that? Why would you say Cain like Cain and Abel? Like the evil one who killed his twin. And so I shake his hand, and instantly my whole arm went cold. Like I could just feel ice creeping through my veins as soon as I touched him. And that just kind of like scared me, and I sat back down. And then he sat again on my left side next to my drug dealer in black. So again, I've got black and red on my left, green as neutral opposite me, and then white and blue on my right. So like the geometry of the room and the colors were highly symbolic. And then I kind of like collapse back into this dimensional experience that I'm having. I go into the fourth dimension, I kind of see through time. I go into the fifth dimension, I kind of see through possibilities. I go into the sixth dimension, I kind of see like not just possibilities in my own individual timeline, but mass timeline potentialities in millions of different life forms. And yada yada. I go up like through all the dimensional experiences, right? I finish going through all the dimensions, and then my perception changes. All of a sudden, I am back in my body, but I'm not in that room, in that house anymore. Now I'm just in kind of this like cosmic waiting realm, this purgatory, if you will. Remember I said there's like parallels to Dante's Divine Comedy? So I've entered the purgatory state, and in front of me is this massive clock that I call the clock of lifetimes. And every second on the clock was a different life that I had already lived. I was like looking at all of my past lives, and I kind of jumped my awareness into each life, going around it clockwise, second by second. And I experienced the whole life. It's like there was an aspect of my consciousness that was still in that waiting room, and each lifetime was like 1 second. But when I would go into the lifetime, I would live the entire thing, whether that be 100 years or whatever. So I was like having this complete time dilation and experiencing them at the same time. So I go all the way around the whole life, or the whole clock, right? And I've experienced every one. And I notice immediately, and this is where it's important that I'm a Scorpio, and like you said, like the patterns of death and rebirth, these cycles are important. So I'm making this cycle around the clock. And I notice in every single one of them, I achieve some kind of like fame or fortune or some kind of like monetary success, recognition, status, whatever it is. I've like succeeded at the life. But in every single one of them, I died in a very horrible, painful, lonely, awful manner. The deaths are what I focused on, that they were like showing me something, but I didn't know what yet. So I live the whole lifetime of the clock, and then nothing happens. And then I do it all again, and I live the whole cycle of all the lifetimes again, and nothing happens. And then I do it a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time. And I'm just going around in these cycles, living all these lives. And that's when it kind of occurred to me, like, wait, why am I doing this? Why am I living these lives? What's the point? If every time, no matter how successful I am, I just die in some horrible, awful manner, and it's all gone, then what's even the point? Why live? Why is there life? What's the point? And then that's where thoughts filled my mind of this woman who I had met 4 months earlier, the love of my life, Amanda, and all of the magical, beautiful experiences that we had already had in just these 4 months, and like the kind of vision of spending my future with her. And I was like, having met this woman is the greatest thing I've ever experienced in any of my lifetimes. And then it clicked. It was like I understood it all. I went, oh, it's all love. Everything is love. It's all about love. Love is the reason for life. Love is why the universe does anything at all. Love is the foundational, underlying bedrock of what reality is created out of. When you strip away all the other distractions and distortions, there is nothing but love. That's the whole thing. And so that's why if you ever see on my social media profiles, my bio just says, it's all love, was because of that experience. And on Instagram, my name is listed as Just Awareness because the experience leading up to that had been nothing but just awareness. I had no ego, no identity. I was just awareness. So it's like, that was my like click moment. I realized, oh, it's all love. And as soon as I pieced it together, as soon as I understood it, the clock of lifetimes melted away. The perception of me that was the yin and yang void melted away. The perception of me that was my physical body on the couch tripping with my friends melted away. And all of a sudden, I was in an alien spaceship. I was in a physical form, but not this body. I was a different body. I was like a higher dimensional self. And I'm looking around at this. We're sitting at this big table. It's like this council meeting. And I'm sitting looking at all of these other various highly advanced life forms. And they are all laughing hysterically at me. Like they're having a good belly laugh. They are holding their sides. They can't even hold it together. They're falling out of their chairs. They are losing it at me. And I'm just looking around all confused like, huh? What did I, what's funny? What did I do? What? I don't get it. And then sitting next to me is a blue-skinned being, an Arcturian, if you're familiar. I don't know if people are into ETs in this podcast, but you understand the experience. They are now.
Oh,
so,
I'm very familiar.
Okay, very good. So, okay. The Arcturian sitting next to me, who I kind of got the idea that this was his council. He had sort of started it. He was hosting it, if I will. He leans over and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, "You had us worried for a second there, man. We thought you were never going to figure it out." And of course, I'm just like, huh? And then that's all he said. And then there was just like a flash of light. And next thing I know, I am back on the couch in my physical body, and I'm looking straight up at the sky, which is weird because like there was a ceiling above me, but somehow I could see the sky through the ceiling. And I'm watching the ship just pick up into the air and fly off into the galaxy. And so then I'm like very confused, and I'm looking around at all of my friends, and I didn't say anything at all. I'm looking at all of them, and they went, "Welcome back." All of them, in unison. 5 people just looked at me and went, "Welcome back." And again, I'm just like in shock. I'm like, huh? What? I don't get it. And so again, my drug dealer goes, "Here, you need to like come back to reality," and offers me cocaine. And I was like, nah, something is telling me I need to take better care of my vessel. I need to, respect the temple that I am living in. I can't be putting that into it. Then the girl directly opposite me in the green chair, wearing green, who represents neutrality, she goes, "How about this?" And she holds up a joint. And I hesitated. I was like, wait, I don't feel the same message from the universe about that. I don't feel like weed is this like, destructive thing that's going to harm me. And I kind of asked the universe, I said, wait, can I do that? Is that harmless? Am I able to use cannabis? Is that an okay thing? And instead of it like answering me directly, I saw overlaying my friend in the green chair, green smoke kind of like bubbled up and like swirled and rolled out of the chair until it took the form of a woman. And she kind of like, sultry, seductively like leans back into the chair. And she goes, "It's all good, baby. We're all good." And then she held out her fist like she was going to do like a fist bump. And the entire universe, like the whole physical reality around me, like rippled. It went boom. Like it fist bumped her back. And that kind of taught me in that moment that like, okay, I guess weed is not so bad. And I have still used cannabis regularly for like 10 years since that time, until earlier this year, 2 months ago, I felt the calling like Mary Jane has taught me everything that she can, and now it's my time to do it on my own. I don't need to rely on a substance. It's the age of sovereignty. You know what I mean? We do it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need crutches. We just stand in our power now. So now I'm 100% sober. But anyways, that was the moment that completely changed my life. I know it took way longer to explain than I thought it would. I know it was very complicated, but hey, it all happens in divine timing, not by earth clocks.
Exactly. That was so incredible. That was so amazing. And it was perfectly explained. And the craziest part is I was listening to your story and I'm like, how did I figure all this out sober? Because I figured out everything that you experienced. I experienced everything that you experienced. And and I was just like, yes, yes, yes. And that was just so phenomenal. And thank you so much for sharing the truth and love, being in alignment with truth and love. To everyone that is listening, this is the real experience. This is why we exist. And it is true. It is all love. And I came down to all of these same conclusions and had these experiences too. Oh my gosh. This
And
is so awesome.
my hat is off to you guys too. The ones of you who figure it out all on your own, because to me, I feel like my experience was like a cheat code. You know what I mean? Like the universe took
Yeah.
pity on me and said, "I'm going to give you these physical substance that are going to open it up for you, because bro, you're not doing it right. You're hurting yourself." you
Yeah,
know.
that was
Uh,
incredible for you to figure out everything. That is so incredible, and that's awesome. I'm really glad that was your experience.
and it's like, oh, man, I wish there was so much more time, because I feel like that was just the key. That was the beginning. That was the first step.
Yes.
But now there's all the life after the ego death. Will have to
Yes.
be another episode or something, I guess.
Yes, we're gonna do another episode of what life is like after all of that happens because it opens up a whole new world of reality that you get to experience, and it's so phenomenal. So we got to tell
Definitely.
everyone the new life you had. So yeah, we're gonna do another episode, guys. What a delight, and I know everyone is gonna really enjoy this. It was so phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And if I can shamelessly plug myself in this last moment, um, anybody who's thought that story was cool and like wants to hear more, I'm not really a content creator yet, but I'm kind of this was like the first step in me kind of opening up about this. I've been behind the scenes for the last decade, so I'm going to start sharing a lot more stories and wisdom like this. um, if you see on, I don't know, maybe you can like tag me in when you post this or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
my social media name is Pureception. If you follow me, I'm gonna start talking about more of this stuff. So if you want to see more, there you go.
Mm-hmm. The world needs this. Yeah, everyone needs to hear this. So I'm so glad that this could be the start because it's going to be so incredible all the places you go, and yeah, just sharing all this truth and waking people up.
Well, I appreciate you so much for having this sacred space to allow all that and facilitate this global awakening. You're a big part of the mass shift.
Thank you.